Bonjour, habari za leo. My name is Jakudu Guya.
My name is Jahan Biku.
My name is Rashik Fatah. I'm the director of Our Future Cities. On behalf of ICLEI Africa, the African Centre for Cities, Our Future Cities and partners, I'm excited to welcome all of you to the Rise Africa 2021 Action Festival.
Rise Africa has been growing as a platform of thinkers, doers and enablers committed to inspiring action for sustainable cities.
Rise Africa is about building active networks across academia, government, private sector, civil society and the arts.
Our entry point is based not on articulating problems, followed by proposing solutions, but rather on celebrating our cities as places of innovation and culture, while asking what more we can do to make them more sustainable, inclusive and vibrant.
This festival is hosting 46 sessions from across 16 countries in Africa and the world. Every session aims to share new ideas, showcase ongoing actions, and launch new initiatives by bringing participants together to chart a new route forward.
We hope that the festival program will inspire you to commit to one or more specific actions that you or your organization will take on. As the session closes, you'll be redirected to a survey in which you can articulate these actions. We will follow up on these committed actions throughout the year and offer resources, connections, and support. In this way, we are testing the idea that events can galvanize action, and we hope that you will join us in this effort.
Beyond this session, there are many ways to take part in the festival.
Register for further sessions.
Vote for your favorites in the photo competition.
Watch a variety of inspiring video provocations.
Test your knowledge of African cities from our daily quiz.
And listen and dance to the Rise Africa 2021 playlist.
We hope that you will make all attempts to reach out to new people and build lasting connections.
Before we begin, it is important to note that this session is being recorded and that by participating, you are consenting to be recorded. All recordings will be available on the program page after the festival.
Creative expression is vital for creating new futures for our cities. So we invite you to enter the session in the spirit of creativity and dreaming.
Let our voices ring, soft and strong. A million rainbow tongues pushing our songs through the wind. Let our stories dance out in step with the moon. Let them boom from hamlets in Soweto. Rise through the sprawls of Cairo, straddle the contradictions of Lagos. Let them tell of sweat and fear. Accompanied by djembes, talking drums and all that jazz. And time and again it is to these voices we turn to remind us that we get past the pain, that we have once chiseled out beauty from mountains of self-doubt, and through the dark tunnels of despair, these stories will lead us out. A universe of multiple dreams written into history, written out of poverty, written to the laughter of thunder, written in lightning, written by a million rainbow voices that never stop ringing.
Good day, everybody, depending on where you are in the world or in Africa. I am Ingrid Kutsia, and I'm going to be your facilitator for our session today. And it is my great pleasure to welcome you all at this dialogue session on Africa's Great Green Wall. Can cities take it to new heights? In particular, I would like to also welcome our esteemed speakers and mayors, whom I will introduce shortly. But before I do that, I just want to explain that as we have some of our speakers are French this afternoon, we do have French translation available. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little world icon. And all you need to do on that is press either English or French, and it will take you to the particular translation stream that you need to have. So that is just to repeat, there is English and French translation available for our session. The icon is at the bottom. So Rise Africa, basically, as you saw from this lovely video before, celebrates Africa by focusing on how we build new narratives to shape inclusive, vibrant, and sustainable cities on our continent. And Rise Africa's festival specifically seeks to be a platform for sparking innovation and building a community of actors that are committed to positive and substantive changes in our continent's cities. With our session this afternoon on the Great Green Wall, Can Cities Take It to New Heights? We're focusing on something that's very unique, but also very innovative on our continent, and that is the Great Green Wall, which has been called Growing a World Wonder. So with this session, we hope to not only raise awareness on the Great Green Wall, but also to show that cities can be urban champions, specifically cities that can help strengthen the linkages between rural areas and urban areas and contribute thereby to the many objectives of this amazing initiative, which is also a symbol of hope in our continent to deal with so many of the challenges that we face, from desertification to climate change, to food security, to gender inequalities, etc. And we hope that by introducing cities into this dialogue, we can build cities that are more resilient, smarter, and contribute to the well-being of our urban dwellers and those living in surrounding rural areas. I would like the next slide, please. Can we have our next slide? Thank you. So our program this afternoon, I've done the welcome. I'm going to be introducing our speakers now. And before I do that, I just want to say that we're very sad today. We heard very recently that unfortunately one of our speakers, Mayor Lowe from Banjul, the capital city of Gambia, is not able to join us today because unfortunately there has been a death in the family. And I also want to just convey our sincere sympathies and condolences on behalf of ICLEI, but certainly also from the Rise Festival to Mayor Lowe and her family. So before I go through the program, just very briefly to say then, you can see here we have a statement by Madame Fatimotou Abdel Malik, who is going to be our first presenter, and she is from the Nouakchott region. And then following on from that, we have two presentations specifically on the Great Green Wall. The one is by Dr. Birgi Lamizana from the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. And then the second is by Dr. Mokhtar Sakandi from the FAO. And we hope then to, after that, have a time for questions and discussion. So I'm just going to ask everybody, if you do have a question for either Dr. Lamizana or Dr. Sakandi, if you could please just pop them into the chat box and we will then field the questions from there. And then we will end with a few closing reflections from our two main speakers. And with this, I am going to now just ask that we show very briefly a video on the Rise Africa initiative. And I see that we also have joined us now some new presenters so that the people in the back room can just admit our new attendees. And then we can just quickly show the video and then I will introduce Madame Malik to make her statement. So if we can have the video, please.
My home is embattled by desertification and drought, migration and conflict. restoring the land is a matter of survival. It's up to us to create an African dream.
We're talking about revitalizing the ecosystem, the economy of communities and villages. The future generation will hold us accountable.
If people can't work their land, millions across the region will be forced to migrate.
Le convoyeur va te donner à un autre convoyeur. Tu es déjà vendu à ce convoyeur sans te rendre compte. J'ai eu 4 amis qui ont pris la balle.
The Great Green Wall, it's not just about planting trees. It has to become a movement from the whole continent, from the whole world.
Thank you very much. And it is now my great honor and pleasure to introduce to everybody this afternoon Madame
needs leaders who'll deliver lasting positive outcomes for both
Sorry,
people.
if we can just, thank you. Sorry about that. Madame Fatimatu Abdel Malik, who joins us as the president of the Noatruk region. And we are very, very honored to have you here today. She is somebody that has a tremendous amount of experience in this area. We will put her whole little bio in the chat because it's very impressive. And she is also the elected regional representative council, the first region of Mauritania. And it's a very significant one in that it represents 1/3 of the total population of the country. Madame Malik is the first woman president of a regional council in Mauritania, and as a fellow woman, that makes me very proud. And she was also the first woman to be elected the head of the city council in her country. And then she's also the founder and past president of the REFELA, which is the network of locally elected women of Africa. And with this, Madame, I hand over to you to do your statement. And just to remind everybody again that it is going to be in French, but there is English translation available. Thank you.
C'est bon? C'est bon? Est-ce qu'on m'entend?
Yes, thank you.
Merci, ok. Donc, j'avais commencé par dire que je suis très honorée par la participation à ce panel, combien important pour nous, important aussi pour nos pays africains, parce que les pays africains sont frappés fortement par la désertification. Et avant de parler de la muraille en tant que telle, je vais quand même revenir sur une brève présentation de la Mauritanie et celle de Nouakchott particulièrement. Alors, la Mauritanie est un pays sahélien, pays saharien, donc il s'étale sur plus d'1 million de kilomètres carrés. avec les 3/4 désertiques. Les 3/4 de sa superficie sont désertiques. Donc, c'est une grande partie de la Mauritanie qui n'est pas habitée. La Mauritanie aussi a connu des années de sécheresse répétées, ce qui a occasionné ce qu'on appelle un exode rural, un afflux des populations du rural vers les centres urbains à la recherche d'un domaine meilleur. Alors, la population de la Mauritanie avoisine les 4 millions, sinon un peu plus de 4 millions. Nouakchott est la capitale de la Mauritanie, donc c'est la vitrine. Elle héberge plus d'un tiers de cette population et elle concentre beaucoup de défis, particulièrement les vulnérabilités liées au changement climatique. Donc, il n'y a pas de couvert végétal. D'ailleurs, ces années de sécheresse ont si vous voulez, ont eu raison du cheptel, c'est-à-dire ont décimé le cheptel en Mauritanie. Elles ont changé structurellement le mode de vie des populations parce qu'à l'origine, les Mauritaniens étaient des nomades. Maintenant, nous sommes à moins de 4% de nomades de la population. Donc, cet afflux, Nouakchott n'est pas en reste par rapport à cet afflux du rural vers les centres urbains parce que Nouakchott était une destination privilégiée pour cet exode rural parce que c'est le premier centre urbain en tant que tel, en tout cas, égard à son caractère de capitale de la Mauritanie, première vitrine, etc. Et j'avais dit qu'elle concentre beaucoup de vulnérabilités, beaucoup de défis face au changement climatique parce que Nouakchott est située entre la mer et le désert. Donc, elle est, si vous voulez, coincée entre la mer et le désert. L'avancée du désert nous pose énormément de problèmes, mais aussi la mer, parce qu'il y a des brèches, il y a des ouvertures au niveau de la mer qui, si vous voulez, menacent à tout moment de rupture. Donc, nous sommes sérieusement menacés à Nouakchott. Alors, et pour atténuer un peu tout ça, pour l'appréhender, il y a eu beaucoup d'interventions, beaucoup d'actions, tout un processus que la Mauritanie avait engagé en créant un ministère de l'environnement, du développement durable, mais aussi en prenant beaucoup de textes qui incriminent par exemple le plastique en Mauritanie, beaucoup de textes qui nous, si vous voulez, qui nous accompagnent et qui nous aident à mener à bien nos différentes actions. Alors, la muraille verte était, si vous voulez, un grand espoir pour nous en tant que Mauritaniens parce qu'elle traverse plus d'un millier de kilomètres, je pense 1100 kilomètres, et elle traverse environ 6 wilayas. Les wilayas en Mauritanie, nous avons 13 wilayas. Nous avons d'ailleurs 15 wilayas parce que Nouakchott est subdivisé en 3 wilayas. Et la wilaya, c'est les régions, c'est un peu les régions, c'est l'équivalent des régions dans certains pays. Alors, et elle traverse plus de 15 muqata'a. La muqata'a, c'est l'arrondissement, c'est l'équivalent de l'arrondissement. Donc, il y a beaucoup d'efforts au niveau de cette muraille. Il y a une conjugaison d'efforts. Donc, chaque muqata'a, chaque commune, chaque wilaya était interpellée. Je veux dire interpellée en tant qu'administration, mais interpellée en tant qu'élu local et même les élus nationaux. Donc, tout le monde était concentré justement à fournir des efforts dans le cadre de cette muraille verte, pour la réussite en tout cas pour le tronçon qui passe sur la Mauritanie. Il faut dire que la désertification, la lutte contre la désertification, la Mauritanie a très tôt ratifié la convention de lutte contre la désertification. Elle a d'ailleurs ratifié l'ensemble des conventions liées justement au développement durable, à l'environnement, etc. Mais tout un processus qui a été déclenché très tôt, mais qui qui ne s'intéresse pas uniquement au reboisement, qui est un pilier, parce qu'il faut reboiser pour toute désertification, c'est la première action. Et d'ailleurs, il y a un mouvement de femmes qui était engagé, j'en faisais partie, peut-être que ce n'est pas sorti dans la petite bio, c'est qu'on avait créé en 1998 un groupe de femmes qui étaient femmes contre la désertification, parce que la convention, justement, avait une dimension qui était dédiée aux femmes, à l'action des femmes dans le cadre de la lutte contre la désertification. Et nous avons, à travers cet appui, reboisé dans des quartiers, dans des coins très reculés de la Mauritanie. Donc, femmes contre la désertification, c'était une action, si vous voulez, avec des caravanes à l'intérieur du pays. On a sillonné beaucoup de zones. Donc, je disais que l'action n'est pas seulement, ne veut pas dire seulement qu'il faut reboiser, et non, il y a tout un ensemble d'actions autour du reboisement, le changement de comportement qui est d'ailleurs extrêmement important, qui est déterminant dans ce processus-là, parce qu'il faut que les gens prennent conscience de la menace de la désertification, de la menace des changements climatiques. S'ils ne sont pas conscients de ça, être conscients de la nécessité de maîtriser et de valoriser ce qu'on fait, mais aussi de surveiller et de préserver nos ressources naturelles. Si on n'est pas conscient de ça, on n'a pas avancé dans l'iota. Donc, c'est tout un processus, mais aussi qui doit être accompagné aussi bien par la réglementation, aussi bien par l'administration, mais surtout par les partenaires, parce que sans les moyens financiers, on ne pourra pas avancer aussi. Donc, c'est une conjugaison d'efforts à la fois entre les administrations, les pouvoirs locaux, les gouvernements nationaux, les partenaires, la société civile. Donc, il faut que tout le monde s'investisse pour que justement on puisse appréhender cette problématique qui est extrêmement importante et qui est menaçante. Si on n'est pas conscient qu'on risque de ne plus exister si ça continue comme ça, alors là, on n'est pas sorti de l'auberge. Je suis désolée, donc je suis prête pour répondre aux questions. Voilà, sommairement, succinctement, ce que j'ai à vous dire. Merci bien, merci.
Merci beaucoup, Madame, and that was a truly inspiring story that you told us. I'm really inspired to hear, to see how the whole country came together. And you said clearly it was not just the national governments, but also the local and the regional governments. And what I find so lovely about your story particularly is the leading role that women played in mobilizing this whole initiative. So we really thank you very much. We will, at the end of our webinar, after we've had our two other speakers, we will take some questions. And we appreciate the fact that you avail yourself to answering some questions then. I would like to now at this stage just introduce our next speaker. And we have someone here from the UNCCD. We have Dr. Bugui Lamizana, who's going to talk about her organization's vision for the Great Green Wall. We will put her full bio up also in the chat box, but just to say quickly that Dr. Lamizana has more than 20 years of experience as a development professional, and she's a senior project officer currently at UNCCD, but she's also had the privilege of working for other organizations in this field like UNEP and the IUCN. And then she has an engineering degree in water resource management and a doctorate in freshwater ecology. So she's very, very well equipped to address us now. Over to you. Thank you, Dr. Lamizana.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. I will request that after you start sharing my screen so I can start. It's a privilege to join you today to really talk about the Great Green Wall, but also to see which role the cities can play to really help us. Next slide, please. So I think I want to play this video again, because this was the first, the one which opened this session, but I just want to highlight the role for example, UNCCD is taking to help spread the word of the Great Green Wall. And this singer is one of the ambassador, which is helping to share the story of the Great Green Wall and to really highlight how important it is. And there are so lot of such a different videos and sketch and outreach material which we need, because sometimes the idea of the Great Green Wall, because the word wall is misleading, and people, and I really thank you to Madam Abdel Malik for highlighting that the Great Green Wall is not only tree planting, but it's everything around. It's a kind of integrated way. So this is the fact that we are using this type of trailers and short videos to highlight the importance. Next one, please. So the Great Green Wall, as we said, is really an African initiative led by Africa. And since the inception in 2007, it's really a symbol of hope to fight back and create a better tomorrow for the African citizens and for the Africa as a whole, because climate and desertification and drought does not have a nationality or did not bear a passport. It's just for all of us. So it's since the inception, this is, we can, if we are talking right now on nature-based solutions, this Great Green Wall, as it has been conceptualized and as it's implementing and involvement, is really a big, great example of the nature-based solution. So next slide, please. Since the inception, seen as a planting trees, it has evolved to creating job, to income generation, like bringing involvement of private sector and others to create income generation through the value chains, and a lot of capacity building. So to date, we have, since the inception and the implementation, almost 350,000 jobs has been created with the communities and the intervention areas in different localities. This Great Green Wall, which is snaking from the Atlantic to leading to Djibouti and the Red Sea, is really something which is encompassed not only the rural area where you can, but it's a rural-urban interconnectivity. The income generated so far is over 90 million based on activities from timber and non-timber forest products, from youth implementing activities, from the private sector seeing a return of investment and coming in and joining hands. Over 20 million trees has been planted also from Senegal to the west, in the west to the Djibouti in the east. And capacity building also has been taken on sustainable land management, on water resources, on how to really nurture trees planted, but how again to make it sustainable, because the area is not just planting, but it's a lot of capacity building to change the behavior, to change the way we see it, to change the way we are living, so that we create a better way of making our own step and contributing to the full initiative. Next slide, please. So since in 2011, in January, because I said that the inception of the Great Green Wall is back to 2007, but the initial ideas was even back when the president Burkinabe Thomas Sankara highlighted it that we need to have something green to stop the Sahara. This was back 1980. But in 2021, in January, just this year, all the communities on the One Planet Summit come together and say that we need really to put a speed now to really implement this Great Green Wall. And they come up with what we call the accelerator, which have 5 pillars on activities. The one is how we invest in small and medium-sized farms to strengthen the value chain, local market, and organization. The second is land restoration and sustainable management. The third one is climate resilient infrastructure. access to renewable energy, but also smart agriculture. The fourth one is favorable economic and institutional framework. And the fifth one is capacity building. And what the Great Green Wall is trying to do is really to accelerate by tracking the financial commitment and disbursement, because a lot of commitment has been made during this One Planet Summit, over 14 billion. And we need to track it, because sometimes there are pledges, but how much is reaching and how much is really available to implement and change the narrative and change the dawn on the ground, so that the community can feel the difference. Tracking also the implementation progress of the Great One countries, provide technical advice to partners, and support also the countries in resource mobilization, and create a public awareness campaign. The movies, for example, which was share, is part of this awareness campaign and advocacy. Next slide, please. I'm going quick because of the time. So the goal is by 2013, 100 million hectares is restored, 10 million job is created with the focus on youth and women, and 250 million tons of carbon has been secreted, and 300 million beneficiary for this all work. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. So when we look at this, we can ask ourselves, why should the world care? We care because when we talk about desertification and we talk about drought, we need to find a solution. And the Great Green Wall contributes to the SDGs, which all the countries has committed to, SDG 15 and 17, just to name two. And then degradation, as I said, has it's not only in the Sahel, but it has implication far beyond. And land degradation is one of the causes of migration. And million of youth are leaving their land because they cannot cultivate, they cannot generate income, and it's really a kind of base of poverty and the way of looking for a better life. So they will live, and most of them, we have seen a lot of documentary and even the news of our youth from Africa dying in the ocean, in the Mediterranean, because of that. So land degradation is one of the causes, and this Great Green Wall as a concept and as activities is one of the solutions which can help us halt that. Next one, please. So what the role the cities can play? Next slide, please. So when we look at cities, we see urbanization, we see the challenges the urbanization is bringing, because a lot of buildings, then deforestation, overcrowding, excess of carbon, competition for lands in some countries. Now even the land is becoming so much scarce, pollution, loss of biodiversity. And you see that the trend is like majority of the world population now is living in urban. But the solution is, how should we bring and connect, shift from the flat construction to the vertical? And I think a lot of European countries are seeing us how to do it, and African countries is like shifting and doing that one. Connecting the urban-rural, strengthening the urban-rural connectivity, because sometimes the resources are extracted from the rural just to help and sustain the urban. How do we make the balance? How do we improve a sustainable urban-rural connectivity, connecting the human and the plants, because it's not because you are living in a building and in the city that you are not doing some greening. And we have seen a lot of improvement on in some cities where green space has been improved, urban forests and trees is some common understanding now in the city that this can be done. Creating urban green that to integrate a wider landscape and restoration activities. I think that the Great Green Wall is not just a small area where you have to do it, but all of us living in the cities, we have a role to play, and the mayors, such Madam Malik and also Madam Lowe, these are the example of leaders who are showing us how to really take care about our cities and make a kind of integration between the land and land restoration, our living way, and our way of living in the city. This can help us have a urban biodiversity, energy saving, sound barrier, but also clean air and so and so. So the cities play a key role because if all the youth and the population and the majority of the population is increasing, then it's where the action has to take place. My last slide, please. Last slide, please. So this is just some example I took from where the area in Bonn. I'm living in Bonn, and just seeing that most of and the example of City Hall in Chicago, and some areas and buildings where people are not only looking at trees outside and driving to go to the rural peri-urban to see some green, but they are also integrating this green with their the living and with the infrastructure and the cities. So just to conclude and say that the Great Green Wall is a great initiative. We all have our role to play. It's a multi stakeholders. It's involved at the political twinning, the political and action on the ground, and the buyers and cities have a central role to play to make it happen and sustainable. So thank you, and over.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lamizana. That was really an amazing presentation. And I like the way that in your story, what came out was, again, the role that women have played. You talked also about the need for changing behavior. And towards the end, you gave some really practical, useful advice that cities can use and how they can help contribute to the Great Green Wall, but also make their cities greener. So that was really a really lovely presentation. And I hand over now, introducing also our final speaker, who is going to be Dr. Mokhtar Sakandi. He has indicated that he has a problem with his video, so you will not see him in live, but he will be there. His audio is there, which is the important thing. He also has some slides to share with us. And Dr. Sakandi is the International Project Coordinator of the Forestry Division at the FAO. And he is also International Projects Coordinator for the Action Against Desertification, which is in support of the Great Green Wall. He also has a PhD, and he has an extensive experience working, for example, also in the Royal Botanical Gardens in Kew, which is a lovely place. And we will insert his full bio into the chat. And I'm going to hand over at this stage to Dr. Sakandi. Thank you so much. Dr. Sakandi, I just want to check that we have your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can. Now we can. Oh. Yes.
And can you see my screen?
We can see your screen, and it looks lovely. We're ready for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. And thank you to all my predecessors who have really made the task easier for me. And just before starting, I really wish a happy Africa Day to all of you, because the 25th of May is the Africa Day. Happy Africa Day to all of you. The 2 or 3 presentations that precede mine have really made the task quite easier for me. So I don't need really to go through all some of the detail, but just to complement what we are doing at the UN FAO side. That complements what Birgit presented also, in the sister organization like UNCCD. Then thanks to Mauritania, for those who don't know, who hosts now the Pan-African Agency of the Great Green Wall, is the heart of, the coordination and the implementation of the Great Green Wall in Africa. Now, from FAO side, how we work with the Great Green Wall. first of all, it just for information for you to understand that there have been a harmonized regional strategy for the Great Green Wall, which have been agreed by the countries and the Pan-African Agency, meaning that it's really focused on the dry lands around the Sahara, the bigger desert. And the reason for that, just to remind you that it's a decade before the UN Sustainable Development Program that the Great Green Wall have been adopted by the African Union. And it just addressed the increased challenges linked to food insecurity, the climate change, desertification, and biodiversity loss. Within that harmonized regional strategy, restoration came really as the #1 priority for most of the countries. Yes, there's some human phase, there's some socioeconomic component, but as a natural-based solution, restoration came as the priority for all the countries because of the dual benefit that it incurred linked to biophysical and the socioeconomic component. That if you look at the arid and semi-arid area around the Sahara or around the desert, you'll find that land degradation is high, but land degradation is not yet reversible. So the thing that you can still do, although the rainfall is quite limited. From our side, how did we tackle the issue? We're talking about it, how big is the Great Green Wall? How much work is needed to implement it? Who should it benefit? These are some of the fundamental questions that, at our side, we started really looking at the bigger picture. And in order to get some answers to that, we started really looking at what can be the catalyzing actions. And in two components, one is how to map the scenarios, what is needed in terms of scenarios, and what are the technical approaches that need to be implemented for the Great Green Wall. Again, this is just for information. On the right-hand side of the map, that is the continent, you can see all the arid and semi-arid area around the bigger desert, the Sahara. So initially, I mean, if you look at the connotation of the Great Green Wall, it's for the Sahara and the Sahel. So you'll find that all the arid area around the Sahara, which are restorable, and you can see the different land use and so on. So north of Africa, so we divided that into 3 major regions, the northern part of Africa, the Sahel, which have been described from the previous speakers, from the Red Sea to the Atlantic, the largest part, the largest width of the continent, and also the southern part of the continent, where you're sitting now in the southern part of Africa. So it is encompassed all the dry lands, of the continent. So the African Union have widened the context so that it's not only the Sahel part, but to embrace the full scale of the dry land in the continent. If you put that together, you'll find that we have over 200 million hectares available in terms of land that are restorable in Africa dry land. And you have more than 250 million people living in those areas. So you have the component on the northern part of the continent and also in the Kalahari-Namib area. So that's how we start mapping up the scenario. Now, how to go about the large-scale restoration, mainly to benefit the small-scale farmers, which is really, really crucial to win the battle of land degradation. The first thing that we try to do is looking at the traditional knowledge, the traditional practices, how the farmers, the community tackle the land issue. You'll find that in the Sahel, on the left-hand side, there's the way to dig half moon so that you can just harvest the rainfall during the raining season. And that technique takes 100 people for 1 hectare for 1 day. Hard labor, very expensive, and often at this period of the year, in May, June, before the monsoon, before the raining season, so that you can harvest the rain season, the rainfall, the rainwater. Now, what we try to do is look at the appropriate technology that can help to speed up because of the scale, because of all the difficulty that it's encompassed. And often you can see it's mainly the women who are busy with that activities, while the men are out with, their herders or nomad with the animals to get some grazing. So with the machinery, you can have 15 to 20 hectares a day, and it's less taxing, twice cheaper than the hand working. Why are we doing that? If you go with the machinery, you dig deep, that help in terms of soil permeability, and in terms of water harvesting, it's really 10 times more water that you can harvest during the rainy season. And that is the technology that can really, really help. These are the picture of some of the implementation, the realization in Burkina Faso, in the northern part, where really we had to use the drone technology to assess what we are doing now, because it's at scale. This land is about 200 hectares. And often you can see that we work on the degraded land. It's not the land that the farmers are using, but how you bring that back to productivity so that, you can capitalize on the biodiversity loss and also the useful planting. Linked to that is just like what the way we are tackling the land degradation issue, we hinges that with the socio-economic component. So the economic potential is also very, very important. And how to do that? Currently, the benefit first of the land restoration, by this year, we have 60,000 hectares that have been planted in 5 years, more than 25 million. I think really, the data need to be updated. If I talk about the 25 million trees planted, they're not necessarily all from seedling from the nurseries, because we do some direct sowing as well. And on the right-hand side, you can see some of the products that already are sold in the market. Because if you go to the dry land, the dry season is problematic to get some feed for the animal. And at the bottom, some of the land that we get some productivities, the farmer can grow some pulses and some crops. So far, we cover nearly the 11 countries of the whole Sahel region. What are the other benefits in terms of improving the livelihood of the community? On the right top side, that is an example from Senegal, where with the land improvement, they introduced some gazellas, the wildlife conservation techniques, which attract tourism and so on. In the middle, that is the crop production. Land that was not arable, you bring that back to productivity, and then you can increase the food security issue, because that is one of the top mandate for my institution, and so on and so forth. You can see at the bottom in the middle, these are the women that have been using the desert date oil to make some soap for the first time, and just some of the species also that we plant in the field. Now, we are talking about how the cities can be important in the Great Green Wall setup. That is very, very important, because if you look at the Great Green Wall villages, it gives the opportunity. They have the production power, I'll call it the production power, the cultural, traditional power, but also some wild food. That is really, really important in the agroforestry system. Now, how the cities can be helpful or can contribute to that. Cities are usually, they have the purchase power, the consumption power, the economic power, the policy power, and you name it. We're around with the big mayors of cities, they know more than myself. Now, there's some opportunities for exchanges. It's been mentioned before, you heard it as well, but cities can be really, really a big marketplace for trading what we call the non-timber forest product. Please, if you consume what is local, that came from mainly the local population. I showed a picture quickly of honey production, of salt production. Also. That started at village level, but that's how to cascade up to the cities where you can add some value to the product, and it's create some employment for youth and women and so on and so forth. So there's some opportunity really that we have to tap in. And I would say for what we're achieving these days, it gives really the potential for city to support and not to be, to be considered as far from what need to be implemented in terms of Great Green Wall. I think with that, I just summarize quickly my presentation. Yes, there's some scale, there's some land in Africa mainly for the dry land to improve productivity. Our estimate is that you need something like 10 million hectares to restore by 2030. You have heard, Dr. Lamizana presenting it. So to reach the 100 million of hectares divided by 10 years, you have something like 10 million hectares per year. So that is a massive, massive scale, meaning that there's space for everybody. Cities have to contribute, youth have to contribute, women have to contribute. We are all in it to win it. Thank you very much, and over.
And thank you so much, Dr. Sekandi. I really like that end about we're all in it to win it. I think that's a really great way to end. And also thank you again for some very useful and practical advice around how we can involve cities and villages as well. I think that's such an important message, and it's such a useful piece of information that you have shared with us today. It certainly wasn't something that I was that aware of and that I had thought of, and you've given us a lot of room for thought. And on this, I would like to, and I hope we have our French translators ready, because I have a question for Madame Malik. So I just want to check that the translation is working. And then if we could please just find out from Madame Abdel Malik, listening to her story where she told us how how she'd motivated and how the whole, in fact, in her country, the whole country had got together around the Great Green Wall. I would like to ask her, what advice, Madame Malik, would you have for mayors and leaders, whether these are youth leaders or women leaders or whatever leaders in cities in other parts of Africa, to also motivate the citizens and to motivate the youth, to motivate the women, to change their behaviors, so that we can all make a contribution to having a greener environment, greener cities, such as we've seen in these presentations today, but also where we can contribute through looking after our nature and through planting trees and urban forests and urban agriculture to creating jobs, and so that our cities can become the real marketplaces again, which pulls people together, which creates work, which creates produce and trade for not just the city, but for the wider regions. Thank you.
Merci, Madame. D'abord, je rappelle que ce sont tous les segments des populations qui sont concernés et qui doivent être sensibilisés autour de la question des changements climatiques, de la désertification, la lutte contre la désertification, autour du bien-être même des populations. Et les élus locaux, nous, les gestionnaires des villes, nous devons être à l'avant-garde de tout ça, parce que nous sommes mieux placés que quiconque pour connaître les problèmes des populations, les défis liés au territoire, et même proposer aux besoins des solutions pour ces populations en menant une approche participative avec ces mêmes populations. Donc, compte tenu de la proximité, compte tenu du lien intime qui nous lie avec nos populations, nous sommes en tant qu'élus locaux être à l'avant-garde de tout ce processus-là. Maintenant, pour les changements de comportement, moi, je pense qu'il faut nécessairement qu'on puisse mener des campagnes de sensibilisation, mais mieux que ça, il faut qu'on puisse avoir des alternatives pour les populations. Je m'explique. Par exemple, pour les femmes, dans certains coins, qui ne sont pas conscientes du danger et de la menace qui les guette en détruisant leur couvert végétal, en détruisant les ressources naturelles qu'elles ont, il faut nécessairement les sensibiliser, mais il faut leur donner une alternative pour qu'elles puissent continuer à mener leurs actions. Je m'explique encore davantage. Une femme, par exemple, chef de ménage, qui ne trouve que du bois de chauffe pour faire sa cuisine à la maison. Il faut nécessairement lui trouver une alternative qui ne veut pas dire qu'elle doit nécessairement aller chercher du bois, détruire la nature pour faire sa cuisine. Donc, il faut lui trouver l'alternative. Il faut aussi nécessairement qu'on puisse entourer ces communautés de certains soins pour qu'elles aient accès aux services essentiels, l'eau, l'électricité, les routes, etc., la santé et l'éducation surtout. Parce que sans tout ça, sans ce package de services de base, on aura toujours des problèmes à mettre la main sur le comportement de ces populations. Les jeunes, il faut très tôt les sensibiliser. Et là, je veux dire que même au niveau de l'éducation, il faut introduire des modules de respect pour respecter l'environnement, pour respecter nos ressources naturelles. Il faut qu'il y ait des modules au niveau de l'éducation, au niveau de l'école, pour que les enfants très tôt soient éduqués sur cela. Et donc, et les accompagner pendant la jeunesse, pendant durant toutes les tranches d'âge, pour pouvoir qu'il y ait une prise de conscience. Et je pense que l'action doit si vous voulez, doit se fonder sur essentiellement les jeunes, parce que c'est l'avenir, et les femmes, parce que c'est les gardiennes des terroirs, et c'est elles qui sont là. Donc, si on arrive à maîtriser ces deux segments de population, à changer leur comportement, on a déjà, si vous voulez, mis de côté une grande partie du problème. Alors, nous, au niveau de Nouakchott, nous avons, si vous voulez, adopté dans ce cadre des actions importantes, justement en impliquant et les femmes et les jeunes, parce que nous avons ciblé des espaces publics pour les coopératives, pour les maîtres de l'eau, pour que les femmes fassent une activité de maraîchage au centre même des quartiers, mais surtout des quartiers précaires. C'est la périphérie de Nouakchott. Et les jeunes ont un rôle justement de véhiculer, de s'occuper des transactions pour aller verser la production de ces femmes sur le marché. Donc, on a un peu initié entre ces deux segments de population pour qu'ils puissent être en harmonie et comprendre que c'est extrêmement important de jouer chacun son rôle. Nous avons aussi ciblé des périmètres autour de la ville, l'agriculture urbaine, et nous visons deux objectifs essentiels par cela, parce que nous avons, je n'avais pas évoqué tout à l'heure que la population de Nouakchott est une population de jeunes, nous sommes à 60% jeunes, et ce qui dit jeune dit qu'il y a un chômage, qu'il y a un taux de chômage extrêmement important. Donc, pour mettre la main sur ces populations, ce segment de population de jeunes, pour qu'ils ne déversent pas dans le terrorisme, ne déversent pas dans la délinquance, on les a impliqués justement, on a créé des emplois dans le cadre de l'agriculture urbaine autour de la ville. Le deuxième objectif, c'est que, et c'est la COVID-19 qui nous a enseigné ça, c'est que nous ne produisons pas en Mauritanie, malheureusement, pas beaucoup, en tout cas le maraîchage. Et la COVID, quand on a fermé les frontières, il faut voir, c'était une flambée, les prix des légumes en Nouakchott. Donc, on a voulu aussi réguler autant que faire ce problème pour désormais la production de l'agriculture urbaine autour de Nouakchott puisse être versée sur le marché local pour alimenter ce marché local et un peu diminuer, influer sur les prix. Donc, et l'emploi et la régulation des marchés, mais bien sûr, nous visons à travers cela parce que limiter les carences, il y a un problème de santé qui est aussi induit, implicite dans tout ça. Donc, voilà succinctement ce que je peux répondre. Je suis à votre disposition aussi pour un complément d'information. Merci.
Thank you very much. That was really great, and I think that I really welcome the fact that you point to the role that women as the guardians and the youth as the future. I think that is certainly very valuable advice. We have some other questions, and I am going to present them both to both Dr. Lamizana as well as to Dr. Sekonde, and they're quite similar questions. The one came from Simone Tandiwe de Lange. She wanted to know, how can one become involved in the Great Green Wall? And the other related question comes from Bayodi Akomalev. The question there is a little bit more complex, that are there any direct and specific roles that cities and municipalities can play in the framework and the governance of Great Green Wall projects? So in your presentations, you did talk generally, but I think there's a request from a more specific response. If you could maybe start off with Dr. Lamizana, and then we can move on to Dr. Sekonde. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for these questions. Yeah, I think that, as I said, and as all the speakers said, there is a really role for the Great Green Wall. Right now, from our side as UNCCD, what we are trying to do even is with the push for the accelerator and the fact that we need all to be involved. We are even mapping the different actors who are intervening into the Great Green Wall. As Dr. Sekonde said, we have the coordination and the framework, which is led by the Pan-African Agency of the Great Green Wall. But we do every country has also national focal point for the Great Green Wall, and we have activities linked to that, where you have, for example, the civil society, but you have also the government side, you have the private sector. Depending on the different pillar of the Great Green Wall, it's liaising with these setup at the national level for the Great Green Wall that you could really offer what we want to do and how you could be involved. In every of these 11 countries, I'm not talking about extended, there are a committee, there are an agency for the Great Green Wall who really are at the level, at the ground level, at the local level, just to make sure that it's contextualize what the solution to be provided and liaise with the different actors over there. So this is one way of really getting involved and seeing from your specific area of work, which of the different pillars do you want to contribute to? Is it on the investment side? Is it on, are you a private sector so that the value chain side? Are you from the government side? So it's also depend on where and who, from where you're coming from as a stakeholders. And then this committee can really look and see. But all the coordination, as Dr. Sekonde said, the Pan-African Great Green Wall is sitting in Nouakchott and working at the national focal point. But for more detail, and we can you can still liaise so that we can see how to put you in contact if you don't have this contact. But I'm sure the contact of these committees are available in each of the countries. So for the framework and the action, how the cities is also working, I think this also go back to there. In the beginning, we have since 2007, it was like more on the political will, the coordination will, but we have seen a lot of players on the ground with the implementing projects on the ground to contribute to the Great Green Wall. And what we are trying to do is really, as UNCCD, is to provide support to the Pan-African Great Green Wall, who are coordinating all, strengthen them, provide some data, but also a framework for monitoring, not only the pledge and side of the donor, but also on the implementing on the ground, to have a clear mapping of who is involved there and what is the result so far, because I think the Great Green Wall has gained a lot of momentum, and a lot of actors are really working and wanting to play a role in the Great Green Wall. But what at the end, what we need to have is to complement each other so that the objective we have set as upon us can be reached. So I think I will stop here, and maybe Dr. Sakande can add.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lamizana. I'm actually going to ask Dr. Sakanda, there's been another question that is more specific also to him. So if he can address that previous question, but then also just to focus, please, on the TASA technique that's being used in the Great Green Wall. The question is it usually for small-scale farmers, or have there been improvements to scale it up on a larger area, and or are they using other irrigational practices? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great questions and great answer. I can just complement what Dr. Lamizana have said. Just to say, I really, for me, we are still hesitant asking how we can be part of this program. I would just take ownership. Okay, the Great Green Wall is really for Africa. It's been led by the African Union, more than decades ago. I just said before the Sustainable Development Goal and so on and so forth. And most of those institutions that Biggie was talking about have been established really more than 10 years ago. The National Agency for Coordinating the Program, the Pan-African Agency, and so on and so forth. Now, we are reaching out really to more of the private sectors, the civil society, all the different groups, so that really people will take ownership of the program. It's not a top-down program. It's really bottom-up, or you mix it and so on and so forth. And I presented it when we work on the estimate and so on. There's enough space. It's really huge. And for once, really, I mean, you mentioned it at the introduction, is the world wonder. So I really want the continent to take ownership of this program. Otherwise, it looks like, okay, we are beside. Even for us, FAO or UNCCD or UNEP or you name them, the UN system is there to support the country, to support the continent. It doesn't belong to us. So really feel free to take ownership of the program, going through what in the countries and what is going on and so on. Yes, the extension to the Southern Africa, that is managed by the SADC Secretariat in Gaborone. So just ask, you'll have full information. And currently, even the country are working on their national plan and strategies and so on and so forth. No single institution can do that alone. Just together, feel part of it, find a way, and then you see how you can contribute. Civil society, private sectors, banking, cities, it's all there for us, because if I really extend it, okay, that's why you have the Sustainable Development Action. And this year, for example, we are starting on the 5th of June. We will launch the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration. Globally, it's a massive problem. We are all concerned. Private factories, everybody, we have to do something, related to nature. Somebody mentioned it, the COVID case is there. I mean, it's a lot of lessons to learn from that. And the Great Green Wall has been really a great anticipation. And this is really, Africa program, and you feel free to be part of it. My straight answer is really take ownership of the program. Okay, we will facilitate, we'll help, we'll see how we can support you. Now, the question about the TASA technique, that's what I show quickly in my presentation. The machinery that is put, to work to prepare the land at scale have been really created or invented based on the TASA techniques. It's called the Delfino machine. So they use the half moon technique. It's just like you build some contour around the slope, and then when it's rain, that block the water, and then you have more water. So that is typically the TASA technique that you use in the Sahel that have been really mechanized, so that we can go at scale. So that is the quick answer to that question. Over.
Thank you so much. And I sadly think that we need to bring this to an end now, but I want to give all of our speakers an opportunity just to say a few closing remarks. And I want to refer to basically one thing, and that is that the Great Green Wall is also seen as the wall of hope when we face things like poverty, but also the health situation. We sit in a really unique situation at the moment where we are not only having to deal with climate change and desertification and migration and everything else, but in a context of this pandemic. Madam Malik, you referred to the health and the COVID situation. So I'm going to start off firstly by Dr. Lamizana, if you would like to give one last message from UNCCD, picking up on the wall of hope idea. And then we'll go to Dr. Sakanda, and I will give the last word to Madam Malik. Thank you, Dr. Lamizana.
Yeah, thank you. I think that, first of all, thank you, ICLEI and the Rise Africa for organizing such a wonderful event. I know it's a wide range of events you're organizing. This is really a great platform for us to exchange and see how everything what we are doing from different corners and different angles are really shaping and contributing to a same objective. So the topic of the Great Green Wall is really amazing, because what I want to, the last key message I just want to say is that there is a room for all of us to play a role and to provide and to contribute. And we need to start it with our own. Even if we are sitting far from the Sahel or far from the Kalahari, the desertification and the land degradation impact does not bear a passport. And if it's hit somewhere, it will hit all of us. So let's join hands and let's win together. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that lovely message. And could we have Dr. Sakande, please?
Yeah, just to add my voice to Dr. Lamizana, really thank you very much for the opportunity and the event and so on. It, for us, it's always, good to spread the messages and then to show the knowledge and then see how we can support different group communities and so on, starting from the village up to the cities and so on. Yes, the whole of hope. I will add also a whole of opportunities and whole of potential. Really, I mean, the experience that we have, what we have delivered, I can tell you it's beneficial. It's not just doing and turning your back. You do it, there are things to gain out of that. I've seen, for example, in Nigeria, we have reduced the conflict between farmers and pastoralists, just because we have been growing some species, which are just further species for the animals, because the dry season, there's nothing. Initially, people even didn't believe that you can grow, what is seen as a natural grass, you can grow that for the animal. That have helped really to resolve a lot of problems. In Burkina Faso, we started before the security, hit, through terrorism and so on in the 3 countries border, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Currently, some of those lands are used by the displaced people to fill the gap of crop production and so on. Opportunity for everybody, potential. I showed the picture of the women. We started really using the desert date, which is a natural species in the dry land, just to extract the oil and then make soap. The importance of hand washing during the COVID situation and so on. That was even before the COVID and so on. And for the first time, in those villages, the women have some technology that they produce some soap for the family use and also for the market and so on. If I mention the gum Arabic, maybe you don't know, but this is one of the massive ingredients sought of internationally and so on. It just occurs only on the Great Green Wall area. Now, what we need to do, all these potential and opportunities, that's why the cities are really, really important. The city have to support the value chain of these non-timber forest products. Often it seems like a, village product, so on and so forth, but that is what is feeding the cities. Now, how the cities can also help the farmers to be better off, the youth to get some jobs and so on and so forth. It's really all there in front of us. So we need to make the most of it. We need to explore the potential. And I think that's, hand in hand, we will get to somewhere. It doesn't need really to come all from outside. Around the compound, around the villages, and so on and so forth, we have, the solution to be better off for the future. Over.
Thank you. And before I hand over to Madam Abdel Malik, I just want to say quickly, in the chat box, you will see that we have put the email contact addresses of both Dr. Lamizana and Dr. Sakande. They've been very kind to say if there are any follow-up questions, if you'd like more information, you are welcome to contact them. We've also put in some links about some video provocations to rating the session, etc. So please watch your chat box. And with this, I would like to ask Madame Fatimatu Abdel Malik to say a few closing words for us. Thank you.
Merci. Merci beaucoup. Il faut dire que j'étais très honorée par participer à cette plateforme importante, mais d'autant plus honorée pour avoir le mot de la fin de cette plateforme. Alors, je vous remercie vivement à la fois notre partenaire ICLE, mais aussi à tous les autres partenaires et pour les brillantes interventions qui ont été extrêmement instructives pour nous. J'aimerais bien souligner que nous devons prendre conscience au niveau de nos pays et particulièrement en Afrique que notre avenir reste tributaire de nos comportements vis-à-vis de la nature. Donc, il faut nécessairement qu'on sache que notre avenir est lié justement à nos comportements, à ce que nous faisons de nos ressources naturelles, de notre environnement. J'aimerais bien souligner que l'implication de l'ensemble des acteurs est extrêmement importante aussi, et particulièrement les segments de jeunes et de femmes, parce que ce sont deux piliers pour justement de développement. Et j'aimerais bien aussi souligner qu'il faut nécessairement qu'il y ait une synergie, et j'ai bien aimé les échanges qu'il y a eu entre les villes intermédiaires, les grandes agglomérations, mais aussi le rural. Donc, il faut qu'il y ait des synergies entre ces différents niveaux parce que c'est important qu'il y ait des échanges, c'est important que chacun dans son coin, je dirais, prenne conscience de la problématique qui nous entoure. J'aimerais bien aussi vous dire que nous fondons beaucoup d'espoir sur la muraille verte, particulièrement en Mauritanie, en Afrique naturellement, et particulièrement en Mauritanie, eu égard à notre milieu désertique que j'avais évoqué tout à l'heure. Donc, nous avons 3/4 désertique. C'est important que nous nous y mettons. Et je pense que les différents acteurs au niveau de la Mauritanie sont, si vous voulez, engagés justement pour accompagner cette muraille. Et si j'ai une doléance et recommandation dernière, pour les partenaires, c'est qu'ils doivent nécessairement aussi tenir leurs engagements en matière de disponibilisation des moyens pour qu'on puisse justement mener ces actions dans les délais, surtout parce que le plus souvent, on n'est pas dans les délais. Et vraiment, la problématique des changements climatiques, de la désertification, ne peuvent pas attendre. Donc, il faut qu'on respecte les délais pour mettre la main sur tous ces problèmes. Encore une fois, merci et j'espère que nous aurons l'occasion de nous rencontrer sur d'autres plateformes. Ce sera un plaisir en tout cas, nous sommes disposés. Je suis très prise, j'ai beaucoup d'engagement, mais j'ai tenu à participer à cette plateforme compte tenu de son importance pour moi, de son intérêt pour moi. Merci bien.
Thank you very much, Madame. And that's actually such an important thing you said here at the end, that although you are a very, very busy person, this is so important that you took time out, and we really appreciate your participation. But we also appreciate the participation of Dr. Birgi Lamizana as well as Dr. Mokhtar Sakandi. And I hope to take up the invitation almost from Madame Malek that we meet again at another platform. Rise Africa is not something that's only going to happen once. We're continually wanting to rise. And I certainly would like to see us again, and maybe a bigger group next time, to report back, to reflect, because I do believe, as all of you here, that this is certainly probably one of the most important initiatives in our continent at the moment. And it is for all of us to take up this challenge so that we can give hope and create opportunities for the people of Africa. So thank you so much again. It's been our absolute honor and pleasure to have you here as speakers, and then also the participants. Thank you and good day to you all.